Welcome everyone. I'm William Besman and this is our Pathways channel, and we're very privileged to have a dear friend of ours, Mr. Paul Saladino. He's here with us. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you.
And Paul is a very gifted, certified intuitive, a medium, spiritual counselor, and Anra energy healer. And Paul, what I'd like you to do is, if you could tell our listeners a little bit about how this began for you. When did you first start to notice that you were intuitive, or you started to get some impressions? How would you describe that?
For me, it started really young, somewhere around the age of 8. I remember growing up in a very strict Catholic Italian family.
Uh-huh.
We were always led to go to sleep by saying prayers. And I remember at an early age saying my prayers and hearing something back. There was a response to it. So I remember having a conversation rather than just me stating my prayers.
Okay, just rather than just talking one way, it was an exchange.
It was an exchange. And
Wow.
I felt it. It was warm. It was inviting. It was informative. It wasn't scary. And it became normal for me to do this up until the age of 13. And I think at 13, 14, I started to hear voices in the right side of my head.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one particular day I was in the shower, and they became so loud that I got out of the shower to put music on to drown them out.
Wow.
I was afraid to listen to them, and I was also afraid to speak to my parents about it, obviously.
What were those voices like? What do you remember from them? I know it's a while ago, but...
I don't remember exactly what they spoke of, but it was informative.
Mm-hmm.
It was comforting. It was, the information was about God, about life. I didn't know enough to write it down at that point, and I kind of, for a while, blocked it out because I got very scared of it, which for probably about 4 or 5 years, I blocked it out.
Okay.
And then later, went to see a woman who was a spiritualist, and she was a counselor, and she was also a psychic medium, and she explained to me that this was good, it wasn't bad.
Mm-hmm.
And she asked me to listen to the voice, to actually ask them to come back to me and to open up to them and get the information that they were speaking of and write it all down.
Mm-hmm.
Which I did, and slowly it came back. And one of the first things that I was told was there are many roads to heaven, many faces of God, all leading to the same destiny.
Wow.
And I wrote it down, and I made a little plaque of it, and I kept it by my bed. And this was about the age of 17 or 18.
Okay.
And shortly thereafter...
Now, could I interrupt a moment?
Sure.
During that time, would you be able to pick up any insights about anyone around you, or any of your friends, or the classmates, or family?
Yeah, this went on since I was about 8 years old.
Okay.
In fact, the first memory I have of that was probably around the age of 9, and my mom took me shopping, which was a hectic day, going with my mother shopping. And I remember she went to get a pocketbook, and we went to this store, and it was jam-packed. They were having a sale, and she had picked out this one pocketbook that she loved. She, by mistake, put it down. And it was chaos in the store, and she got really upset. She said to me, "Paul, I lost the bag. I lost it." She said, I don't know how I'll ever find it again." And I listened in my head, which this voice led me straight to the pocketbook.
Wow.
And I picked
That's
it up
awesome.
to my mother,
Yeah.
and she, at that point, I started to use it a little bit. I would tell my mom that when there was a family member or a relative that would come over, I would say, "Mom, I don't think she's well. Something's wrong with that woman," or "That person's going to be pregnant soon."
Mm-hmm.
And I was only around 10 or 11.
Now, how did your family respond to that?
With
I'm sure it was
humor
mixed,
and
but-
fear at the same time. They joked about it for a long time. In fact, at the age of 13, by hearing those voices, I then started to have out-of-body experiences. I would leave my body at night. I would hover over my body looking down at it. And I would travel, astrologically travel to places I never knew. Mm-hmm. And so, again, when I spoke of this to my parents, they got me a shirt that said, "Out of body, be back in 5 minutes."
Is that right?
So That's how they handled it. They thought if they could laugh about it, it
Right.
wasn't all true or serious. But
Or it might go away.
right. Later, skipping ahead years later, my parents became my biggest supporters.
Supporters.
Oh my God, yeah. And so after 18 or 19, I started to take classes, and I started to visit spiritual places and see if I could pick up on energy. I started to read energy at an early age, and then I was fortunate to stumble upon pathways, which I was blessed.
We were very fortunate to have you stumble to us. And Paul's been one of our incredible students, and he's practicing full-time. This is how he makes his living with his gifts that he's developed over these years. And how did it move from there? When did it get to a place where you would start doing it professionally? Or did you start doing some type of reading before that?
No.
You know?
Pathways was my initiation. My favorite class that I remember was Spirit Journey.
Mm-hmm.
It, for me, opened up my eyes to all different aspects of spirituality. And you guys trained me and gave me a heads up and a motivation and an inspiration to do the work. So I then read a lot, gathered information. And I remember my first experience with this was a friend of mine called me and she said, "Hey, do you know anybody who's a psychic?" And I don't know what came out of me or why it came out of me, but I said, "Yeah, I do." And she said, "Who?" And I said, "Me." I even looked in the phone. And so she said to me, "Really? You never told me that you were a psychic?" And I said, "I am." And so she said, "Well, I have a friend in Connecticut. Is it okay if I give her your number to do an appointment?" And I said, "Sure." She said, "How much do you charge?" And I said, $25.
Right.
And she said to me, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." So it turns out that this woman called me, and I read for her for about an hour, and nervous,
Yeah.
really nervous. And after it was over, she was very silent. And I said to her, "Do you want to give me any feedback?" But she went on to confirm that a lot of the information I gave her was correct.
Mm-hmm.
And I never imagined that it would go any further than that. But within 24 hours, I got a phone call, and a woman on the other line said to me, "Can I please make an appointment with the psychic?" And I was like,
Who,
"Ooh."
me?
That's what I said. I think you have the wrong number. And so within, I would say, about a 6-month period, I was starting to do this full time. It snowballed into something tremendous.
Yeah.
And I had to quit my other job
Right.
and do this full time.
Wow. It's great. We have gotten such incredible feedback from Paul, from so many of his clients that he's read, and we're going to get into a little bit about the mediumship work and so forth that I'd like to do, in a moment. But and everyone has just spoken so highly of you, Paul, and it's just so great to hear. You know, it really is. And I want to see if you can share with us, how did it go from starting to do intuitive readings, right, to mediumship, right? Let me explain a little bit to the listeners if they don't know what, I'll give you our definition of mediumship, and then maybe you could share how you use it. But a medium is someone who is between the different worlds, the third dimensional world that we're in here, and the spiritual world, and they're able to hear from their guides. Some of them see their guides, some of them are able to hear from their guides, and they bring that information forward, and also are able to talk to souls that have crossed over and communicate with them. So, Paul, tell me, can you share with us a little bit about that part of your work? Do you bring them both together?
Yes.
Okay.
I
So,
do.
can you share that? a little?
Sure. Doing the intuitive readings, I connect to someone's energy.
Okay.
And I automatically, for me, I don't know how other people work, but my energy level goes very high. My vibrational level goes very high, which allows me to connect to those in spirit. So when I'm in someone's personal energy, I would assume that those spirits connected to them in the afterlife come to that energy and then start to communicate to me, as did those voices when I was younger. So as soon as I'm sitting with someone, intuitively seeing the pictures in my head, explaining to them what I see about their life, I start to begin to hear voices.
Okay.
And they would say to me, Graham, I'm
zones.
Yeah.
So let me get this straight for our listeners and for myself as well. You start to see some pictures, right? You connect energetically.
Yes.
Then you start to see some pictures. We call that clairvoyance, right? That's one of the inner senses that we have. We have three basic inner senses that come from our higher self, and one is the clairvoyance, which is the pictures. The hearing is called clairaudience, and Paul, you already shared that. And then the one that feels is called clairsentience. And when you're connecting energetically with that, that's already stimulating that clairsentience. So how do you put it together? In other words, you're in someone's energy, you might see someone or get someone's name, is that right?
Yes.
And then what happens from there?
Basically, I just get out of my own way, and I
Okay.
listen to the information given to me, and I just hand it to the person I'm sitting with. I try not to think about it too much, so I don't know how over the years I've been able to distinguish the visual with the audio, with the...
It all becomes one.
It all becomes one, and it's just, over the years, it's become very easy for me. So I will hear the voice, and I do have a verbiage with them. Like, I can intuitively speak with them. So I can ask them a question, who are you? And I've learned over the years to distinguish a woman's voice as opposed to a man's voice. Somebody who had died young as opposed to someone who died old. They don't have to tell me that. I could just pick it up.
You just pick that up.
Yeah.
Right. Now, what is it like for you to, because there's different levels of consciousness on the other side, right? There's a soul that's crossed over, that could be in God's light, and that has a certain level of consciousness, right? Then there are what we call guides, right? The archangels, for instance, some of the master teachers, maybe Jesus or Buddha or Kuan Yin or any, one of those high-level, very high-level spiritual beings. Do they feel different to you? Can you help us understand that? Because I think
absolutely.
a lot of people would be very interested in what it feels like, what it sounds like, what it looks like to you.
I would base it on the amount of love I feel. Those who are a higher realm, those who are more privileged or blessed, I feel my heart open more. It doesn't make those who are on the lower level less loved. It just, I can only describe that I've seen a few saints over the years have come in as I've done these readings, and the energy is just so loving that it's brought me to tears.
Wow.
So I feel the emotion. It's by emotion that I can really distinguish the level of the soul.
The level, okay.
Yeah, and I find that those that are more blessed, their information comes across easier. It's easier for me to read.
A little clearer, it's a
Yes.
little, excellent.
It's beautiful, actually.
Yeah. One of the things that Paul said, and I don't know if the listeners picked it up, is that he gets out of his own way and allows this information to come through, acts as a channel. And also, one of the things that I listened for is that you're feeling the heart energy. And he's speaking from his heart, and he's sharing this intuitive information from his heart as well. So what kind of effect does this have on people? Like someone who hasn't had a reading, for instance, why would they do that? Why would they go for a reading? What could they, are you going to tell them all the answers in their life and, what's the what decision to make tomorrow about something? Or, do you give them some guidance? Do you get a feel with, well, this feels a little smoother than that path? Do you follow what I'm saying?
I think each individual reading is personally different, and how I view it is they're going to be told what they need, not what they want. Some come with an agenda or a need or a want, and the reading is completely different, but they wind up realizing that that's exactly what they needed. So to answer your question, some don't even include mediumship. There's not that many voices. It'll include more intuitive stuff with their life. So I'm pretty open. I don't like to know who comes to my house before they come. I want it to be just a clean slate and have them walk in, and then I just go with what I feel. It can be many different things. I will tell people about decision makings if they ask me what I feel intuitively, and that's a heavy burden sometimes. That's one of the things that I've had very difficulty with over the years. Because in the beginning of it, I didn't understand that I was just being used as the vehicle. I was taking this personally. And I would oftentimes ask God, why me? Why are you giving me this burden and privilege to, give someone the right to have an operation or to not? And so I basically just get out of my own brain and I get out of my ego. I don't allow my ego to play factor in this, and I am used by Spirit to just translate their information. And so it could be many different things. It could be, every reading is different, and that's why I love it. Because some could be very joyful, some could be very sad. I can offer peace to someone who's lost somebody. I've, over the years, met many people who've come to me just because they want closure or clarity on a death.
Okay. Yeah, we call that psi sessions, psycho-spiritual investigations, when the medium connects with either a family member or a friend or someone who has crossed over to the other side. And, do you give them information like, I see you have a red car, or is it something more, because I know some do that, and that to me is about ego, as opposed to something that can help them heal, because you said to help them complete that, or they need to finish something. Do you have anything recent that you could, I know there's so many and it's hard to just pick one, but is there any recent example or something that stands out in your mind about a mediumship experience where there was someone from the other side or a group from the other side that came forward and a healing took place?
I have two favorite stories. The first was a gentleman who came into my home who clearly didn't want to be there, was pretty much forced by his wife to come to see me. And he had no belief in what I did, didn't care to know. And so when he walked in the door, he
was all filled with positive energy, right?
It was great. And I actually invite people like that. I really do. I enjoy that. So he came to me and he said, clearly he said, I'm not here because of what you do. I just want you to prove that what you do is real. And I became very nervous, and my humanity took over.
Start to take it, right.
And I started to fear it. And I knew that this was a test from God.
Okay.
So I took a deep breath, and he said to me, I began the reading, and I did it for about 30 minutes, and he said to me, can you just stop for a moment? He said, if you're real and you're speaking to my grandmother, ask her what she made me every day for breakfast. And this was his father's mother.
His father's mother, okay.
So I, in my head, asked her intuitively, can you please tell me? Because if you don't, I think I'm in for it. And so she wouldn't answer me.
Oh.
She said, this is a test of faith. And so I said to him, this is a test of your faith. And he said to me, oh, that's a good cop-out. He threw the money on my table, and as he was getting up to leave, I heard in my head, tell him apples and cinnamon. So I looked at him and I said, apples and cinnamon? He looked back at me, he said, no. He said, this is unfortunate, and he slammed my door and he left. I went into a deep depression. I said, why would I hear apples and cinnamon? That was a cruel joke. And I just got really depressed, and I fought off my own insecurities, and about a week later, I hear him on my answering machine saying, Paul, this is so-and-so, can you please pick up the phone? Hesitantly, I thought he was going to yell at me, so I picked up the phone, and he said, I need to apologize to you. And I said, really, why? He said, I went home the next day, and I sat with my dad and had coffee in the morning. And my dad said, hey, how did that reading go? And he said, Dad, it was terrible. And he said, why? And he said, because I asked him what your mom made me every day for breakfast. And he came up with this apples and cinnamon thing. And he said, Paul, my dad broke down and started to cry because that's what his mother made him every day for breakfast.
Wow. Wow.
And he said, the gift was you giving me a gift from my dad. I had to get out of my own way.
Wow.
And so he said, I have to apologize to you. I went there about me, and I needed to give my dad validation that his mother was there.
Wow.
And so...
How did that feel?
Oh, wonderful. I cried, he cried, we And we actually kept in touch for a while, and he's now a big believer. The second one was a gentleman who came by phone. I never met him. And he started off by telling me that he was a born-again Christian. And as you can imagine, they don't believe in what I do. And he said to me this right in the beginning and said, I really don't believe in what you do. He said, but I was highly recommended that I speak to you, and here's how it's going to work. He said, I will send you your money. I will call you at the specific time, but I will not say a word. You just do what you do, and at the end, I'll tell you what I feel. I said, okay. So he did, and he just said hello to me on the phone, and I began, and I started to get into my feelings and listening in my head. And I started to tell him, I said, you know, there's a young girl here, and I see her, and she's got her head down. I see the number 17. I see a curve in the road, and I see a bar, and I smell alcohol.
Wow.
And so I said to him, I said, I don't know who this is, but if I had to make an educated guess on what I know, this is your sister. I don't know what the 17 is. I don't know what the curve is, but... And this was a little into the reading, and I heard in the background what I thought was a sniffling, like he was crying. And I finished the reading, and there was silence on the phone, and I said, okay, we have about 10 minutes. Do you want to tell me what you think? And he just said, wow. He said, Paul, years ago, my sister and I were at a nightclub, and we were drinking. And she was underage, and she wanted to go home because she was drunk. And she kept asking me, can you please take me home? Can you please take me home? And I refused. I gave her the keys to the car. And she went home. She went around a curve. The car hit a tree. And he said, Paul, that was her 17th birthday. And he said, if this be the doing of the devil, he said, then I will praise the devil. He said, you offered me peace that I've never had before. And he called me a few times afterwards, and that was a biggie for me because what was embedded and brainwashed in his brain was healed by his heart opening. And he since then has changed his point of view on religion. He's recommended me to a few people, and it was just a healing experience for both of us. And those are the two that I think stick out in my mind.
They're awesome stories, Paul, and really very challenging. And reminds me of something that Judith teaches. Judith Grant is also an intuitive and medium, and we feel very gifted as well. And when she first started doing it, her background's a nurse practitioner. She's a scientist, so this is nothing that she ever wanted to do. But over time, I don't really want to get into her story, but the first time she sat down with a woman who had lost her husband, I don't know if it was a husband or long-time live-in partner, like 25 years, 30 years, something like that. And she said she was very nervous, and she starts to get anxious, and all of a sudden she sees a fish, right? And she's afraid to say the fish, right? And she's trying to get something else. Nothing is coming, right? And she's sitting there for some time and feeling embarrassed, right? And finally the woman said, well, are you picking up anything from, I don't remember the man's name or whatever. She goes, listen, I really apologize. All I'm getting is an image of a fish. I'm seeing fish on a rod, I'm seeing pictures of fish, I'm seeing things. And the woman beams, and she said he was not only an avid fisherman, but he lived for everything. He won awards. There was pictures of him in magazines with the big fish, and they had fish tanks, with the pet fish. And so the moment she said the fish, then the rest came, right? But it was good. So in her teaching now, and when we teach our intuitives to be in their intuitive counseling class, she says, when you see fish, say fish, right? And it opens up the doorway, right?
Absolutely.
Because it's really not our information. It's coming from a higher realm. And we need to, as you said before, get out of our own way so that this information can flow. And we really don't know why the information is coming. And it's not up to us to know why. And as you're saying so beautifully, it's up to them to interpret it. It's up to them to take the symbols you get, the message, the image, whatever it is, and what does that mean to them?
You attach, I've noticed over the years that I attach to the outcome and rather just be honored in the privilege of the process. I don't any longer worry about the outcome, whether I'm right or wrong, whether it makes sense or not. I just attached to my heart. I was in my head thinking too much. It wouldn't come out the way it was supposed to. So I've learned over the years to just let my heart shine and speak what is being told to me. And oftentimes it's right on the money.
Yeah. See, we teach here at Pathways just what Paul is sharing. And I think it's so important because we could be psychic from different chakras. We could be psychic from our solar plexus, our heart, our third eye. And there's only one of those chakras that really has to do with healing, right? The solar plexus is one of our issues in humanity. So if we're psychic from humanity, it's the same way that we love from the solar plexus. That's conditional love. So it's giving information that's conditional, right? The third eye can be extremely psychic, and it only can see from a very high spiritual realm. So someone who's coming from there might say to a grieving widow or widower or parent who lost their child, oh, don't be upset, because that was the plan from the beginning, that at 7 they were to leave, or whatever like that, and just have no compassion, just be so cold and so forth. But the heart is the only place that can integrate from the lower 3 chakras of humanity and the upper 3 chakras of spirituality. And as we bring it into the heart center, as you do so beautifully, because as you're sharing it, Paul, I know I could feel your love and just the energy that your heart exudes. And I guarantee the listeners, as they tune in, will be able to feel your love as well, and to also receive that kind of gift that he sends out, and setting up that sacred space.